The Liberal frontbencher Zoe McKenzie is with me now, the Shadow Cabinet Secretary. Zoe, thanks for being with us. I just put up these pictures again from Kuala Lumpur. We're awaiting Anwar Ibrahim and also our Prime Minister. They've just released a statement saying, a joint statement, we recognise the complementarity of our trade and economic partnership and the role our countries play in each other's energy security. Both countries serve as energy suppliers to one another, underpinning a mutually important energy security relationship. In this context, we affirm our shared commitment to open, rules-based trade in energy products. We commit to promote open and stable trade flows between our two countries. Zoe, your thoughts on that as the Prime Minister does secure further commitments in the region to just consider that complementarity, I guess, between this two-way trade?
Yeah, indeed. Look, the Prime Minister is out and about doing what he can to, in fact, do exactly what we asked him to do maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now, which is to secure our fuel supply and particularly affordable fuel. I do understand if you need to break from the morning to potentially go to Malaysia to cover the press conference, I will understand, Kieran. But in that respect, yes, the Prime Minister is doing the right thing to remind people that we are interdependent in terms of trade, especially in our region, but now more globally as well with the recent deal they did with Europe. And it's important to reinforce those bonds by turning up and being present in those relationships.
And it's an interesting, I mean, we can hardly sort of take a break at the moment, catch a break when you look at the fire at the refinery in Geelong today.
Yeah, extraordinary news to wake up to this morning. I did look across the beach this morning and there was no sign of fire. It was obviously blowing back towards Geelong, and we'll obviously not find out later on what impact that's going to have. But terrible news for Victoria. We have to some extent been protected because we have the refinery so close. New South Wales has had more empty bowsers than we have. But this now means that Victoria may have even tighter expectations of when fuel will be delivered and indeed at what price. On the peninsula, we've already had fuel, diesel up to $3.30 a litre, even after the excise cut. I have a very diesel-based economy here, lots of agriculture, lots of tradies, everybody's in a ute. We absolutely need affordable and available diesel 24/7.
How do you reflect on that question of sovereignty when it comes to energy supply at the moment? There's, there are views from drill baby drill on the one side to find the oil and drill for it. Everyone should have an EV. Where do you sit on that?
Look, I think the good news is Australians are now much more aware of the fact that we are one of the most energy-rich countries on the planet. It's just that we don't make use of what we've got. If you look at what's been done elsewhere, the United States is now almost entirely sovereign in its energy supply. We could be making steps in that direction. And the great news is now we can have a proper conversation about that in this country. Nuclear arguably can come back onto the agenda here, but as can what we do with gas. We have plenty of gas and talk about what can be done and what should be done so that circumstances like this, which are unprecedented to some extent. The last time we've had fuel supply issues like this was the 70s. So we need to live for the times, and that involves going back to the drawing board in terms of energy.
Yep, and I think that abundance story is look to all energy sources in an agnostic way, and hopefully common sense will prevail, and at least the moratorium, the ban, would be lifted when it comes to nuclear, because that is nonsensical.
Indeed, it is. And that is something that we have been arguing for some time now. Didn't find its place at the last election. The Australian people did not vote for nuclear energy, but maybe we can have a more methodological, detailed, informed, educated debate. Small modular reactors are now more realistic than ever. We can actually push forward, take the best of technology and invention and investment from overseas and ensure our energy future, because there's one thing we now understand is energy is the entire economy.
The speech by the acting Prime Minister on defence spending, it's going to be a NATO comparison. He says they're basically just comparing apples with apples. Why not?
Look, it was interesting. That was actually probably the most comfortable that I've ever seen Richard Marles in the Defence Minister shoes, possibly because he got the acting PM label at the same time. I was curious about what he meant by, what was it called? Alternative financing. It almost sounded like alternative facts to me. I'm a bit worried about what sits behind that or what he's trying to hide. And indeed, what I think in the $4 billion he flagged was being reprioritised. Of course, those $4 billion in reprioritisation are lived as cuts in capability if you are working in that area of the ADF or indeed the ADF supply chain. So I'm sure my colleague James Patterson will be all over it, looking at that and explaining what difficult choices had been made. It was clear from what Richard said, he didn't get the money he wanted. You could see that pain on his face. But we'll go through the detail in coming days.
Zoe, you've timed that well. Let's go live to Kuala Lumpur. Here's Anwar Ibrahim and Prime Minister Albanese.